Hey, what's up everyone? Today we're gonna be watching Clem's POV where he played a nice Protoss versus Terran against Nicorak. I believe I found this game to be quite interesting, so we're gonna have to look at it. I hope I don't talk too much over Clem, but so this map is actually interesting because it's a 4-player map. And Clem, instead of scouting clockwise or counterclockwise, it actually scouts cross first. So it's an interesting approach because if you scout your opponent cross first, you can just play greedy immediately and just, play cut corners, maybe cut batteries and so on. And so you know for sure you're going to be in a close position, either top or bottom right, but at least you know you will be close. So now Clem knows his opponent is not cross, so he can go for maybe a safer approach perhaps, or a more aggressive option, one of the two, but at least he knows he's not going to be as greedy as possible. Whereas if he went for the right side or the bottom top side, well, perhaps his opponent would have been cross and would have known about it maybe a bit later. So that's an approach, but that means that if your opponent is top left in this situation, well, he would have scouted his opponent extremely late. Now you just confirm the command center, so this looks a lot like a Reaper expand or a Marine expand, like gas into command center. Keep in mind, like now the command center actually only cost 300 minerals. I think this game was played just a few days before the patch was released, and also the timing of CC pretty much confirms that. Otherwise the CC would have been even earlier, as you can obviously imagine. So Clem is opening with an Adept. Keep in mind that Adepts into right now's iteration of the game is probably not as viable anymore, because Adepts of course takes 33 seconds to build as opposed to 30 only one patch ago, or 2 patches now at this point. And yeah, so many patches these days. I mean, that's not that bad. And command centers finishing roughly 10 to 12, 13 seconds earlier means that the Adept rarely accomplishes anything, which I think is a shame because it gave a lot of action the early game in this matchup. But because of the command center change that came out of the blue, well, this kind of harassment don't really happen anymore. So I'm not exactly sure why the command center sale, if you will, the Black Friday on on command center ever happened. I'm not exactly sure what's the logic behind it, but so be it. So Clem is gonna get a second gateway, so the gateway should be ideally lined up with warp gates, so you can queue 2 units rapidly as fast as possible. And I think Clem will probably keep his gateways into regular mode, because now you can produce pretty fast with them. And if you do decide to put pressure on the other side of the map, if you go for a 3 or 4 gate blink with a warp prism, for instance, then you would warp your, you would turn your gateways into warp gates at the last moment when you actually need to put pressure. So Clem is going for a robo, of course, provide some detection. And a third gate is going to be added, which means there's a very good chance that our French player is going to be aggressive on the other side of the map. So I really like the fact that he's moving his Adept forward, keeping track on whether Hellion would cross the map. You can see he's planting a little pylon at the 3rd base location at the very bottom. This will give him a little bit of vision to actually see if a medevac were to cross the map. So actually Clem decides to morph both gateways into warp gates right away. So he's going to warp in 2 stalkers most likely. This is why it's crucial to actually line up the second gateway with the warp gate timing, so that you can actually warp in 2 stalkers immediately as the warp gate research is done. So do we go for a prism? I think he will. Yeah, he goes for a prism, so it means he's going to put some pressure, which makes total sense when you play 3 gates. When you play only 2 gates, might as well play greedy. Just take a Nexus and produce continuously, because you can actually get a lot of units with fewer structures, because stalkers build faster without warp gates. So that's actually quite nice. If you do plan to attack, then you actually need warp gate, because, well, it would take too long for your units to cross the map. So you would rather have warp gate and the ability to just warp in units. But first you need to deal with the medevac, or the Banshee in this case, which is also why the stalker was positioned in this location. Just like the... that's so smart. That's so smart what he did. He purposefully led his stalker at the front to potentially let the Terran kill his units, but then his new stalker showed up, and you can see the starport is still spinning, and the tech lab is still spinning, which means Cloak is not done yet. So he's gonna target Marines, because 4 stalkers just about one-shot a Marine or a SCV. And with amazing control like Clem has, you're able to really get a lot of things done. So He keeps an observer and 3 stalkers at home because he knows there's potentially still a second Banshee that could come, which is why we get a battery in the mirror line. Here comes the Banshee, we're gonna blank on it and forcing the Terran to actually use this cloak, which is not ideal. You would rather keep cloak at the last second to actually be able to deal some damage. You can see Clem non-stop worker production, tries to find openings. He's gonna snipe an SCV. I mean, this is, you know, extremely active. There's a battery over here to protect against the potential Banshee. You can see 4 stalkers with a observer somewhat in the middle of both bases, so he's able to jump at any location. Keep in mind he's got some vision at the bottom through the little passage at the bottom, so that really helps, this little pylon. And it's really commenting with the batteries, actually 1 battery per mirror line, quite a commitment. And Clem actually is warping in some units, so he might be scared of a little move out by his opponent rather than adding gateways. So what you want to do usually is add your gates as fast as possible so you can basically explode. As we see, the Banshee gets revealed, not gonna get much done. We have an observer, we got stalkers, warping extra stalkers to make sure it kills the Banshee. Oh, that's very smart. You see, he just turned his observer into surveillance mode because it has more range in this way, so it could have just reached the edge of the Banshee. That's actually a very smart move. Clem doesn't have much gas, which means it's hard to afford a sentry at this point. We're gonna kite. This is actually crucial. As you can see, combat shield is not finished just yet, which means you can still one-shot Marines with the 4 stalkers you have in your War Prism. It's actually critical to try and reduce the size of the Terran's army as much as possible and buy some time if you can. You see like 1 Marine in the red, we're gonna try to kill it. Here comes the sentry. This is actually mandatory to make 1 of them. I'm gonna recharge it. I hope he's gonna recharge his sentry. Yeah, there you go. To have the Guardian Shield. Guardian Shield will drastically reduce the DPS of the Terran army, right? 6 damage per input from a Marine. And you divide that by a third basically because it's -2. So it's actually a very, very big deal to use Guardian Shield. So Clem is going to utilize hold position as much as he can, as the Banshee got reactivated, but Clem was still in position. So you don't want to attack into it immediately. You want to take your time because the Terran army needs to cross the map and join the main base, the main army, I'm sorry. But since you warp in, you have units immediately on the field, even if you produce units naturally nowadays. So you want to delay the attack so your army gets bigger and your opponent's army doesn't get quite as big. So I think Clem is going to try to make something happen here. He's got a bunch of Colossus, a big army, and no Vikings in the near future, in sight. So Clem is going to engage, the Marauders are going to go straight into the Zerg, which is quite ideal for the Protoss. Stalkers blinking on top to try and target the tanks. Colossus is going to target the Marines, of course, very amazing in this sense. We don't really lose the expensive units, right? The Stalkers are still alive, the Colossus are still alive, we just lost Zalds. And you see Clem is always being extremely active with his units, and okay, this is just GG. My RTS Dojo is a website that I've created with Elaser and Spirit, where you can find tons of different strategies, builds, and tips on how to improve for all 3 races, Zerg, Terran, and Protoss. If you're watching me, you're probably watching Protoss content. So here I've made, for example, how to learn new maps like a pro. And I'm gonna make soon new strategies and builds for the new patch, especially the 8-worker start. So if you wanna learn new builds and improve and get some fun in Starcraft 2, my RTS Dojo is where it's at. Okay, now we have another game of Clem, this time against a laser. So this is going to be a Protoss versus Zerg. I don't think Clem is going to be too happy about it. Usually he prefers to play against his own race, so Terran in this case. But he's saying hello DNS because I was in the chat at this moment. That's actually very funny. But I'm gonna speed up a little bit the process. Let's see. I want to see how Clem plays. Yeah, let's skip a bit this part. So adepts first. Put some pressure. So it's actually very difficult. What is he saying?
But the adepts are going to be so late.
Yeah. The adepts are going to be late. I agree with him because
Did he expand?
I don't know if he chrono boosted. I mean, no big deal. But now he's just looking for a 3rd base location. So no 3rd as of now, which means Laser is planning to play some 2-base opener. Laser has been known to experiment a little bit on a new patch. I was casting his games in Home Story Cup, and he was doing a lot of 2-base play against Terran also. So quite curious to see how Laser plays, but especially how Clem does decide to play. We go for a pretty, I was gonna say early wall. It's not that early, but usually you still queue the Oracle or Void Ray before you complete the wall. So 2 adepts, good enough to one-shot a drone or Zergling. You can see the Zerg has enough units. So actually Clem decides to commit, which I'm not a big fan of, to be fair, because Link speech could be finished at this point. We're gonna kill 1 Zergling, we're gonna kill a 2nd Zergling. 3 Lings, okay, I mean, it's not that bad at the end of the day.
Maybe he's taking the gold.
Oh yeah, it could be taking the gold too. There's a gold base at the very top of the map. So you kind of want to make sure you don't get bamboozled by this. Very unlikely, to be fair, because I mean, this base is very isolated, which means it's hard to defend as a Zerg. Like if you were to go for a timing attack or for glaive adepts and so on, it would be pretty much impossible to actually defend this gold base. So yeah, very unlikely. You can see that the gold base has not been taken. Hard to find any damage when your opponent is only on 2 bases, of course. The Zerg doesn't spread himself too thin at all. Here comes the 3rd, so Clem knows is somewhat safe. His goal is also to check whether or not there's a lair. You don't want to get surprised by a Nidus or any sort of euthermal strategy like 2-base Swarmost or this kind of little tricks. Now you've got 2 Oracles, so you've got potential for damage, but still, your opponent's got queens on 2 bases, so you don't have that many locations to strike. This is not the best position of a pylon at the 3rd, which means we can't really play with SimCity. Oh, we get surrounded, and we do not have... Yeah, he actually morphed his gates into warp gates, but you see, the fact that it doesn't have a very well-positioned pylon means it's actually hard to utilize the space and maybe stick your adepts in between the pylon and the nexus to reduce the surface area. So this is why it's actually critical to know properly. Burrow, okay. This is gonna make things a bit more annoying, but we have 3 oracles and the ability to recharge. So yeah, this is not gonna get much done. Yeah, I mean, this is it's a bit annoying, of course, but it's the battery is a bit of the battery is the natural is definitely an overkill. I definitely don't need that. So laser is gonna be a bit annoying. Oh, he's not gonna get the probe. And roaches, okay. So that's maybe the thing with this attack, because you need the oracles to provide some scouting, but you also need them at home to reveal the burrowed units. So the oracles are gonna be busy on your side of the map to actually scout. I mean, to actually reveal the units. But then you don't really know what's going on the other side of the map. You don't really know if your opponent is actually all-inning into you, which seems to be the case. So I would suspect the Zerg probably has less than 40 drones, maximum 40 drones, I would say. It's actually hard to deal with because both his gateways at the front are depowered. If he had like 4 gateways available right now, he would be able to make 4 units at a time, which would be probably okay, considering his opponent's on very low economy. He can afford to do some probes. But now Clem cannot build much of anything, and the oracles actually are empty because they had to be used on the Zerglings, both to kill them and to relevate them. And it looks like Clem is going to sadly lose this game. And by the looks of things, we don't have blink and we don't have really much energy. There's 1 oracle that's going to turn on that just popped. But it doesn't really have much left, and I think this is going to be lights out with this very interesting play by Mr. Ogonovsky, my friend from RTS Dojo. He's gonna take the W, but it looks of things. Clem's trying his hard out to actually deal some to actually stay alive with his stalkers, deal as much damage as possible. Blinking, actually, Laser could have turned around and killed the red stalker. But this is looking grim. I don't think the Laser is on an amazing economy, to be fair, but yeah, this is starting to be a bit hard to deal with. And also the bar was actually quite annoying to deal with. Clem is trying to add some more gateways, but still more Lings coming his way. Stalkers are gonna blink away for their lives, but it's maybe a little bit too many roaches. I mean, the blink micro has been very good, honestly, but you're only working with a very sparse amount of units, and you actually need to have some firepower if you want to be able to hold this kind of push. I mean, Clem is doing a very good job with what he has, but Sally doesn't really have much. You're going to use some mineral trick like this to surround the roaches, and a hold position trick at the 3rd actually to prevent the units from targeting properly, but against roaches doesn't really matter because roaches are ranged units, so they will just attack whatever is in range. Whereas Zerglings, on the other hand, they will struggle to actually find a target, which is why it's very useful to use hold position against melee units. You can see that being used against Zerglings or against Zelts, where you, for example, you surround
his eco must be
cannon.
so bad.
Yeah, it's 37 drones, you see, so very low drone count. I mean, anyway, that was it. I think I found this game's pretty fun, especially the first one. So yeah, Clem is going back to Terran actually. And yeah, I'll see you around. See you.